call the meeting to order. Can I have roll call, please?
Mr. Antoine?
Here.
Mrs. Bonnick?
Here.
Mr. Connor?
Here.
Dr. Demas is absent with notice. Mrs. Eichhorst?
Here.
And Mr. Young?
Here.
Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved. Support.
Moved by Young, supported by Connor. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, Dr. Robinson, our new Bulldog Spotlight.
Yes, so we talked a little bit about this at the organizational meeting, and it's our intent to kind of transition away from the old celebrations portion that was, I guess, a bit more of a on-demand, on the slide type thing, and really begin to move forward with some spotlights on and having some staff and students here. Couple weeks with a holiday and a snow day in between organizational and now hasn't allowed us to scale up our visitors, but we'll be ready come February. We do have Mrs. Brush here tonight, our communications and marketing coordinator, to share with us something exciting that we've talked a little bit about in weekly updates and board meetings, but it's actually live now. So I'll turn it over to Mary Ann. Push the little people button. There you go.
All right, good evening. So we're kind of beginning our Bulldog Spotlight with a way we're spotlighting a lot of other things in the district, which is with the podcast. So I'm pleased to share with you that we've created a weekly podcast series that will is just one more way to highlight the programs and ongoing initiatives here at Romeo Community Schools. And the best part about this podcast, which is called Keeping Up with Our Community, is that it gives our community the opportunity to hear directly from our leaders, teachers, staff, and students. So if I'll just give an idea of what it actually looks like when you find it on Spotify. So we kicked it off with a summary on the sinking fund and non-homestead millage renewals that are on the ballot on February 27th, and as another way to highlight these important millage renewals. And then the remaining episodes for the year will focus on district initiatives and voices from all levels, elementary through secondary. And then we started off with episode 3, which is an overview of the district's strategic plan and an update on year 1 progress from the perspective of our district leadership. So you'll have to listen to it to find out more. And tomorrow, we're hosting our first mental health and wellness roundtable. And so these mental health roundtables will occur roughly quarterly and feature a host of topics around mental health and wellness from the point of view of our school counselors, psychologists, and social workers. So our listeners will have the opportunity to meet our building leaders throughout the rest of the school year and even hear from our student leaders at all levels. And we're hoping that by inviting a variety of guests on a host of topics, we'll engage people and build a regular group of followers with time. So, I mean, as you all know, everybody's inundated with information. We're all getting it from all sides, emails and all kinds of ways, and we just need other ways to share our story. And podcasts are a really popular medium for those. Now that I commute, I've discovered the world of podcasts. And it's just a great way when you're doing, whether you're commuting, whether you're walking the dog, whether you're folding laundry or working around the yard or whatever you're doing, it's a great way to take in information of things of interest. We think this is a really valuable communications tool for our district, and we're really happy mitttv was willing to partner with us and share their resources and their expertise and their studio for us to go and take advantage of this innovative way to share our story. So,
Questions for Mary Ann?
I do. Who chooses the topics?
We do as a team. I mean, with Dr. Robinson and the cabinet and all of, we tried to have it be all, like I said, all levels, different, different curricula initiatives, programs. Felt it was very important to include student voice. So
So is it like a long-form interview? Is it a roundtable discussion?
yeah, that's a great question. It's meant to be pretty informal. And we sit in the studio, there's like a little setup where we can sit 4 people at a table. So they're a host and then our guests and just have a conversation. And so people can kind of listen, exactly get insights from people who are directly involved with these programs and initiatives.
So employees that are involved in the podcast and the ones that are having these conversations, all of the topics are policy-driven sort of within the district. It's not an opinion-based podcast where, like counselors and psychologists and things, people that work for the district are injecting their own personal opinion.
No, it's the work of the district.
It's the work of,
Yeah, they're
that's,
sharing the work of the district.
sharing the work of the district.
Yeah, the
Okay.
perspective from
Wonderful.
the, yes, exactly. I
That's
mean,
nice.
we've only done one so far,
sure,
other
sure.
than the ones about the election, the millages. We have done the one on the strategic plan. So, but yes, the intent is really to focus on what's happening in the district.
wonderful.
Yeah,
I look forward to it. Thank you.
great, you're welcome.
Do you actually have someone from the mental health speaking, or you guys are just talking about mental health?
It's the mental health team from the district.
Yeah, our practitioners
Oh,
for
I
this
see.
first
Okay.
one.
Yes.
In the future, And the other thing that we are still waiting on is there could be some feedback from the recent climate survey from different stakeholder groups that would speak to potential topics. So if we go all the way back to the first climate survey, we began to talk about this notion of our stakeholders desiring more informational material on topics of wellness and mental health. And so we actually had a couple people get trained in podcasting. We began to do some homework on what the equipment would be. And our regular work with Mitt, probably in the last 10 months has kind of said, like, the world is shifting from on-demand video to podcasting because people are busy and there's ways to do this. And no shame and some honesty to say, like, people who have long commutes to and from work, they're a captive audience. And so if we can talk about the good work of the district or update on things like elections, strategic plan, outcomes of the climate survey, I'm sure we'll speak to that at a future. So some will be factual, but the desire is that this is informal and conversational. And depending at the folks at the table, there's a little bit of preparatory work, but we're also learning that they should not be scripted, because if they're scripted, then they're dry and it just isn't as entertaining. So we'll also do Marianne is technically the host, but like I stepped in for part of the strategic plan and took the hosting role over to kind of ask questions. And some of our, Mr. Murray, likely when he's got the elementary principals there in a couple weeks, he'll probably step in and do a portion of the podcast as the host, because he's a little closer to the work and having the context to ask the right questions. So I'm just appreciative of the help from Mitt and Marianne taking ownership of it, so that, because one of the things we've also learned is if you have a podcast and you don't regularly put updated content, your followers aren't going to be followers. So that's where we're at with keeping up with our community.
I just had one question and comment. First one, no pun intended with the hat, but will it be on Apple's podcast service, Apple's
It's on Spotify.
Spotify exclusive right now?
Right
Yes.
now.
Okay. And then my comment would be the work that you have done over these past 5 to 6 months since your introduction to the district. I want to say, on a social media platform, I've noticed the difference in the variety of content that's being posted. So there's a little something for everyone, I've noticed. And we talk about in terms of technology and how information is getting out there, or the most effective ways. I'd really like to commend you and your team for the different ranges we have, traditional and staying current with how to get out to our residents. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate
So
it.
the last thing I would say on this is at some point, we're actually hopeful to scale up an element of this, in our high school VPC program and potentially do some of this podcasting work with our students being involved. But the graphic that you see on the screen, that is our graphic for Spotify, is actually developed by one of our high school interns. So we're getting them in.
Great.
All right, thank you,
All right,
Mary Ann.
thank you.
All right, that's our spotlight for tonight.
Moving on to consent action, can I have a motion?
Motion.
Support.
Moved by Young, supported by Antoine. Tonight's consent action is our general fund bills, our financial reports, wire transfer, purchasing card expenditures, minutes from our meeting on January 8th, and board policy updates first reading. Any questions or concerns? All in favor? Oh,
Aye. Oh,
no.
I'm sorry, I said no.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to informational updates, communications.
The only one I have, Mrs. Bonick, is I mentioned in my weekly update that the fact cards came in the end of last week, so just provided one of those for each of the board members to refer to when you're out in public. And we will be sending these home a week from Friday with our elementary students in their Friday folders, backpacks. We can trust that our elementary friends will get those home. We don't make a practice of that with our middle school and high school friends because sometimes they just end up on the bus or in the hallway and all of that. But we will have these available at our school buildings. We do have extra. If any of the board members, want a few extra for any reason. And we are working with our municipalities to also make them available there where they have other information. So just another way for us to try and get information out, make sure our voters are informed. That's all that I have.
All right, moving on to committee reports. I can go first with policy. We met a week and a half ago. We went over the updates that were provided to us by our policy providers, Miller and Johnson. You each received the notes from that meeting, which gives you the reason behind it, if it's a law change or something that just adds more specificity to it. In a nutshell, there was policies in the 1000s, which have to do with the functioning of the board, 2000s, which has to do with FERPA and educational records, communication, distributing communications, conditions of employment, and evaluations. We also had facilities and operations, making the switch from tobacco to including vaping and those types of things, energy management, and some general policies which are in the 8000 series. So just want to remind everybody that this is the first reading, so there is time to ask any questions, send any questions. Your three committee members are myself, Dr. Demas, and Catherine Rice. Julia is our administrative rep for us, so feel free to call, ask questions, and then the next time we meet, we would do the second reading, which then would bring them into action. Any questions?
When will that second reading take place?
I don't think we actually have that set.
Yeah, there's a few of the policy updates that are the policy provider and our lead counsel, Mr. Garrick, have advised we should consider getting through the process prior to when they take effect. In some of the laws that are taking effect, I think it's February 13th. That's not all of them, but there's some of those. If nothing else, it would be our February regular meeting. But if we're able to do that at a special meeting, because we also have facilities, a construction thing that I think is time-sensitive at Croswell. So if not a special meeting beforehand, then it would be February 26th.
But I would encourage, while it's fresh, and we just went through the meeting to make sure that if you have questions or concerns, you send that, because then we can have our policy provider look at it. We can also have our own legal counsel look at anything if there's wording or anything that we want to look at.
I have a few things. Policy 2005, under communication, it's distribution and posting of materials. I wrote down in my notes flag signs and banners. I just needed some clarification on what, it says property is prohibited unless materials are generated by the school district itself or provide factual information about the school district. Does that cover things that educators bring into their classroom on their own that are not in fact approved by the school district? Posters, flags, things of that nature. I do see here it's libelous, defamatory, obscene, lewd, vulgar, or profane, and that's, or incites violence. That goes without saying. Smoking, tobacco, vaping, marijuana, things like that go without saying. But what about materials?
Which one are you on, just so I'm looking at
To
the exact
update
words?
16.04, policy 2005. It's in the beginning, it's like the first, it's like the fourth page.
So you have a question on that, and we can get an answer.
Okay, thank you. Under 6002, it is the threat assessment. I wanted to make clear that the tool that we're using for the addition of the suicide intervention is sort of a national, at least a statewide general tool. Could I see that? That would be great. It's a statewide initiative that most of the districts are using, so, let's see. We did talk about 8001, the AI acceptable use, which we're still working out because AI is the wild, wild west, and we need to talk about this all the time. Just for the listening audience, we are in discussions about AI and its benefits / detriment to the student body. Let's see. And then 8007 is the discrimination and harassment, which we have talked about on several occasions. And if we could read that here, what is going to be the updated policy? The Board of Education is committed to maintaining a learning, working environment in which all individuals are treated with dignity and respect, free from discrimination and harassment. There will be no tolerance for discrimination or harassment on any basis prohibited by law. The superintendent will develop administrative regulations to implement this policy. The superintendent designates Ms. Julia Butler, Executive Director of Employee Services and Title IX Coordinator, to supervise the implementation of this policy and its implementing regulations. So it's pretty well recognized, the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act, which Gretchen Whitmer expanded protections for LGBTQ individuals. It does take effect in 2024. So we did have to modify our policy of 8007 to include gender expression. This civil rights law does not supersede current Title IX law that prevents males from entering female bathrooms, I've been assured, and it does not allow females into male bathrooms or sports teams, I have been assured. It also doesn't supersede the First Amendment law of freedom of speech, wherein if a student uses a biologically correct pronoun, that is not discrimination or harassment. If it's under the normal rules of polite society. That means that it cannot be in any way discriminatory in nature, language, use of tone of voice. It cannot be bullying. It cannot be harassment. It cannot be outside of normal, appropriate standards of language. But the students are protected under the First Amendment law. If a student wishes to call themselves whatever pronouns they wish to call themselves, another student cannot be then compelled to use that language. I just wanted to make that very clear. These things are mutually exclusive. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, moving on to facilities. Mr. Antoine?
Okay, we had a facilities committee meeting, which Anita, Ms. Bonnick was part of, and Mr. Young and myself, as well as representatives from Barton Mallow and French and Associates, our architect, and district representatives. The first part of the meeting, we were discussing Group 1 projects from the 2021 bond, and specifically, it was the Croswell Early Childhood Center edition. Tonight, we have two resolutions. One resolution for the playground equipment and one resolution for the site work that we'll be voting on this evening. The bid documents and the bid tabs were provided for us in our bid packet to review. So that is that. We were given a detailed presentation on the equipment that is going to be used for the playground at the different levels for the different levels of age groups, and what the base would be, whether it be a turf type base or a synthetic base for the students to play on. We also talked about Croswell and the fact that putting alarm and door access controls on there to make it a district standard. The district is going to go out for competitive pricing related to that, and so that we can move forward with that. Indian Hills is all buttoned up and closed up, and their electrical work continues. There is going to be a delay at this point in time to early to mid-April for the elevator. Barton Mallow and our district staff are going to work to see if we can get a temporary occupancy if the elevator's not there and the rest of the building is useful. And the district, along with Barton Mallow, will work on seeking that temporary approval. Mr. Storm, our Director of Buildings and Grounds, talked about upcoming summer roofing projects. The old high school at the Retzi area, he's getting some quotes and some setting up work for that, as well as the Amanda Moore Gymnasium. Working on a project for the Roseville Middle School water main.
Romeo?
I'm sorry, darn it. Darn it. I work for Roseville Schools, so it's the same.
When he sees our
I see.
MS, it's
It's in
hard.
my 30-some years of experience.
You're good.
Sorry about that. Darn it. Mr. Storm is always also looking at the water main for Romeo Middle School. It's been serviced and repaired several times, and he's looking to put together a bid package and have it ready in mid-February. Over the break, there was an emergency repair that needed to be done on the fire alarm panel at Washington Elementary, And so Mr. Storm got that resolved for us, and he is working with our construction team on upgrading systems and looking at the need to potentially upgrade the systems in all of our other buildings. Mr. Storm provided a director's report. We're going to continue our lawn service with KLM for this year. There was no increase in price. It's the final year that we can request an extension. And our custodial services, we're going to be using ABM for our custodial services for the next coming year. And with the district and working with the company, we have a new lead supervisor that we feel is going to be very helpful for us this coming year. And that's it. If there's any questions or anything I forgot about, feel free to.
All right.
I just have a question about the subcommittee schedule in general. I know that it was kind of discussed that we would, when we get together, that we would have a point person and then someone who would take notes and report out. But I see on the draft here that was kind of already decided, so are we deciding once we get in our subcommittees who's gonna do all those things? Or the person who takes the notes will automatically be the person to report out? Did we decide that for sure?
I mean, we just shared these protocols to start to get a lead, or the chair for the committee, and the chair would be the spokesperson for reports. Of course, if the chair isn't in attendance at that meeting, someone has to. And a different member of the committee would take notes than the chair. So if your committee decides some different configuration, I'm sure Mrs. Bonnick would entertain that. But we just tried to make sure there was some division of responsibility, so
Not
it
the same
wasn't,
person all the
more
way
wasn't
through.
on one board member than another.
And the person who is taking the notes is in direct communication with the administrative leader, who then is gonna
Yes.
report that out, okay?
Yep. And we're really hopeful to use a common template to capture those notes that turn into minutes, and, work through Google,
Okay.
to be able to do those so there's live corrections. But, some of these things certainly can be discussed when you have the first meeting for this year.
Okay.
Moving on to the superintendent's report?
So can I make one more note on this? Just,
Yes.
we'll get calendar invites out. We want to make sure we keep these in the board calendar. Antoinette, of course, does that. She's off this week, so the first round of meetings that are coming up either next week or the week after, I'll go in and make sure that those are in people's calendars, and then the rest will come out the beginning of next week when Antoinette is back. So superintendent's report, we'll start with a brief update from academic services on some things as we hit the ground running in the new calendar year.
Good evening. Have three things for you tonight from elementary perspective. First is related to tutoring after school. Well, some before, some after school, I guess, depending on the teacher schedule and student schedule. But we have brought back high dosage tutoring at the elementary level. It's going on at the secondary level as well. But so essentially what this is students receiving tutoring for an hour a day, 3 days a week, right? It's an intense program for 10 weeks at a time. The program has grown significantly since last year. We currently have 110 students across all 5 of our buildings and 22 teachers. So it's exciting to see it expand after last year. Currently, 74 students are receiving ELA tutoring and 36 are receiving math. We've partnered with Macomb ISD for the math portion of this, as this is kind of our first year, or year one of our math launch. We are in year 2 of ELA, and we decided to go it alone. Our current ELA curriculum provides a plethora of intervention resources, and so we're leaning on those to support our students. It's common terminology, common language. We know that interventions provided within the system actually work better than something on the outside. In addition to the fact that the program's so new to us that it's going to get some of our teachers more engaged with, the resources that are there. Again, 22 22 teachers, right? So that's 22 people who are going to have some greater information about the assessment remediation guides and everything they offer, and then can coach each other up in buildings, and so that's exciting. Our NWA testing window has closed for winter. I'm working hard on digging into the data to try and understand what it means to us, and hope to I will have an update for our curriculum subcommittee, which again will come to the full board in the form of minutes. And then February 13th, continuing with our commitment to our teachers to provide quality professional development around Amplify and our new ELA curriculum. We have 5 coaches from CKLA that are coming to the district. You should note that school is in session, so teachers will be teaching, and the coaches will be visiting all classrooms with building administrators at their specific sites, right? And then our learning coach to provide some constructive feedback and positives about program implementation. That information will then be shared with building administrators. I mean, they'll be there, right? But there'll be some conversation between the coach and the building principal, and then that information will then be relayed to the teacher at the appropriate time. So this is true job embedded professional learning, and we are super excited to see the return that we think we'll get on it. So, questions for me?
How do parents get involved?
In
Signing up their children, or is it by invite only? I think we've
You're
talked
talking
about
about for
this
the tutoring,
before,
right?
For the tutoring,
yeah,
yeah.
so it's based on invite only. You know,
It's invite only.
Yeah, so essentially what we're doing is looking at students who are in or are most at risk, right, and then are able to attend consistently. I mean, that's obviously the big thing. It loses its value if you're not able to come every single time, 3 times a week.
Sure, okay.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you.
My report's a little shorter. So we had a soft start. We'll talk about the tutoring at the middle school last week because we were going to start on Wednesday, but we didn't have school. So I think a couple of them got one day in with their group, but just to highlight, it's a very small group of kids, so they're working anywhere between with 3 or 5 students at a time. So it's not, 15 kids for tutoring, and that's what makes it work with this high dosage tutoring is a small group, 3 days a week. So we have 3 dedicated ELA tutors, 3 dedicated math tutors, and then I have a teacher who's a little bit of a hybrid, and she's working through, it could be both, it could be a couple weeks are on a specific concept in ELA, or next couple weeks might be in a concept in math. Things that I didn't add that I just, thought we should mention, hopefully tomorrow is the first day of the second semester for our high school students. So we had to.
That's a loaded question.
It's
for
not
the
a question,
record.
it's a statement.
Yeah.
It's a
What's going
statement,
on there?
Dr. Robinson. So obviously with not having school Wednesday, we had some exams last week, so the students finished their exams today, so tomorrow will be the start of the second semester. NWA testing has not finished yet for the secondary. Because of exams, the high school students will be finishing their NWA this week. Most of the middle school kids are done. I think there's a handful of makeups that they're going to try to finish up at the beginning of this week. And that's all I have for secondary.
Questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a few other things. We, have a resolution on action items tonight around school of choice, and just to the timelines of when we start these things, and soliciting new students to the district at the kindergarten young 5 level in the coming months. This is when we bring to the board the resolution each year to approve school of choice in the district for the following school year. So, again, this year, we're recommending participation in 105 and 105C. 105C doesn't apply to every district because if you're in the middle of a county, you don't have contiguous or border districts from another county. And our unique positioning in this part of Macomb County certainly puts us in a position to have neighboring districts from 2 different counties. So that's the 105C portion of it. We do have a little bit of change as we look forward to next year. So if the board remembers back last year, we conducted some enrollment forecasting in response to just good financial practices and making assumptions for our budget, but also to kind of, support the elementary redistricting that we did, and also the growing numbers that we see of students coming at the high school level, specifically here at the ninth grade academy. The long and short of a lot of research has us recommending to the board unlimited choice for young 5s to 8th grade. And the application period that is in the resolution will begin on March 11th. That allows us the opportunity to get through those young 5 informational nights, kindergarten informational nights for those new learners, especially in district families. So this isn't specific to school of choice. We do these events for resident students, but it allows us to be positioned. And then, if you remember back in December, we approved to institute a new registration. Yes, there we go. And no longer use Registration Gateway because it is going to be defunct soon. And so that has pushed this window back, I think, about 10 days from normal, because we're on an expedited timeline to have that system ready for our new families to use if possible. This then runs till August 23rd. Once we have our calendar set for next year, which still needs to be negotiated in our negotiations with the REA this spring, that date could adjust because it's all specific to the first week of school. What is unique for this year is we are recommending limited choice in grades 9 through 11 because we're busting at the seams, which is a wonderful thing, but when space doesn't afford and efficiencies in staffing are challenged, we have to make some other decisions. And so I would share with the board and the public that's here or that watches the meeting that in reality, when you go to limited choice, it just, by the pupil accounting manual says, you have to define your application period. And that has to be no less than 15 days and can be no more than 30. Whereas unlimited choice, we can open and take them till the beginning of the next school year. So this is a tentative 30-day window for us because there's still some things with the ISD that we're working out to pick the right time for that window, but it will certainly be somewhere in April to somewhere in May. And we have picked this. It comes right after spring break. But there's some nuance to it that might change, and we will certainly make any of those changes before we post this information and make sure that the board knows. Through a variety of things, most specifically what we've seen the last 2 years and the upcoming 8th grade class, we've defined the number of seats that we have, and that will be 40 seats for 9th grade next year, 20 for 10th grade, and 20 for 11th grade, and once again, that's next year. So we always post the graduating class for extra information. So I want to also clarify something for the board. We have seen growth in enrollment at the high school level, more than pure school of choice. Many of those families are resident families that have been in the parochial system. They may have been with us and they're debating parochial or staying here in Romeo. They don't have to do this. If you're a resident family, you come when you want to come. If you're going to be a middle or high school student, we have to build a schedule for you. So the earlier you let us know, it's more advantageous because the longer you wait, less choices, the student may have specifically for elective classes. So nevertheless, yeah.
On that point, do these numbers, 40 seats, 20 seats, 20 seats at the high school level, does that account for those kids that fall into that, or that's just?
We have left room based on what we've seen the past couple of years. This is above and beyond those students. And so I think one of the things that's really important, and we've discussed this for 2 years now, is we've got to get the notion out there to families who might be considering Romeo Community Schools that there's a timeline to this now. And there needs to be some prioritization because seats are limited right now in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. So We'll get that information on the website, the applications and all of that. And then the last thing that is a part of the resolution tonight is intra-district choice. And that is only at the elementary level in Romeo, because we only have one middle and one high school. And that is for families that may choose to apply to have their child attend a different elementary school than their attendance area. And there are specific reasons and rationale why this happens, and those are the only reasons it happens for. And I just want to clarify to our families who I think are all pleased with what has happened in the redistricting last year. Being redistricted last year is not an acceptable reason to apply for intra-district choice this year. But we do recommend that the board continue to offer this. That's an overview of the resolution tonight. I'm not sure if there's any questions from the board.
I have a question, so, or maybe just more a spring forward, just for discussion. I know this is a housekeeping item, it's something that we do every year. Last year when I voted as a brand-new board member, if I would have known what was coming in March with the rezoning, I probably would have asked more questions. I'm not against the rezoning, and it's not anything about a Heva Washington discussion, it could be between any of our schools. Do you anticipate that happening again this year? Because that was a bit of a surprise. When that happened in March, while I totally understand the reason for rezoning, I have an issue when we pack a school and then we ask those existing families that are zoned for that school to move, but then we allow school of choice for outside people to come in and displace them. I really don't want that situation to happen again, so that's, like, if you could forecast, something's coming down, I would like to know that before we vote on this. And then there are a couple elementaries in our district that are kind of bursting at the seams, especially at the upper elementary level, and I know that that is not just a school of choice thing, because I know it has to do with number of kids there and where we negotiate with our union about where, how high we can put class levels. But, that does kind of play in my mind when we vote for this. So where can that discussion, is that something that's going to come more into play when we sit down and negotiate this year? Teacher contracts, where we can try to help that out.
There's a lot there. So let me take at least a couple pieces of it and we can continue discussion on others. There's no intent in any redistricting of elementary boundary areas for next year, period. So, secondly, I think it does connect to this in the sense of sometimes people see the word unlimited and that makes them think that we take any kid at the elementary level. When you apply for school of choice at the elementary here, you are given the opportunity to give 3 building choices, first, second, and third. Different this year is we are going to double down on making sure that those families give us at least 1 second choice, or they have to clarify on the form, if there's not room for my child in this school at this grade, I am not interested in coming. Okay? So you do not get to come at your first choice if there is not room in that grade level. Okay, so, and that isn't any Romeo-specific thing. That's a common practice. So when we see the word unlimited, there is some limiting factors, but we allow those families to have a second or third building choice, just for that very reason. Third grade at X Elementary is full. At the targeted classroom, average, there's no seats. So you can be a third grader here, you just can't be a third grader at building X because there's not room.
Okay, so would we ever, at this time, at that vote, ever put that on a specific building at this time? So like, just, looking at some of the numbers, I think Hevel and Hampar are probably more bursting at the seams at certain grade levels than our other 3 elementaries. So would we ever say in this unlimited choice, those buildings or one of those buildings is not even going to be an option for school of choice people?
We would not do that because that makes us go from an expanded window to 30 days. And we would deal with as much issue, because there are spaces in the district at that grade level. There are not spaces at this one building.
So if class size is a major issue, where do we debate more? Is it with this topic right here, or is it contract time where we need to work on
Contract time.
getting
Yes.
those down? Okay.
The big difference between unlimited and limited, as he said, is really the timeline. One places a timeline and one doesn't. So it is a weird, it's really, you're offering schools a choice. That's the first vote that all boards have to make annual. It's a yes or no. And then if it's a yes, it's what type. And we simply say, you know, if we have space available, we'll take you up to August at elementary. But if, at the secondary, because of scheduling and all those things and our numbers, we know that we want to have a window, we're going to accept them, we know our space. And there's always room set aside for your typical move-ins or returning from parochial or any of those things. Residents always will have a spot
That was my
in
question.
Romeo schools. That doesn't change. When you decide how much space you have, you plan for that going into it.
Any other questions? Just a few highlights, in terms of our millage renewals. Been through all the municipal presentations. I just publicly wanted to thank the leadership and the boards there for allowing me a few minutes to put this out that might touch some other residents than just our internal communication channels. Our podcasts and some on-demand video resources will be put on the district election page this week now that we're operational. Fact cards we already talked about. And then I just want to reemphasize to folks because, even today, there's a change in, this whole primary action. Within one party or another, we've got people that are going to begin dropping out and that can change someone's perspective on their desire to participate in the primary. We have local proposals in our community, and those specifically include 2 renewals for our school district. And so I just want to make sure that our voters know, even if you're choosing not to participate in the primary with either the Republican or Democratic ballot, you can get a local-only ballot, and we just encourage people to do that. Strategic 2, last week at our strategic planning year 2 action plans, we had some final conversations at our district leadership team meeting last week, and those plans are finalized, so we'll get those updated and make sure that we get that information to the board. I'm envisioning that information will not wait till the workshop because the work is already going, and I'm thinking our March workshop agenda is going to have some topics on it that are going to need some time, and we can get through this prior to then. And then last, in the district update, last week, we sent out for the first time, we have settled on State of the District, our parent informational evening, and that's Thursday, February 22nd, 6 to 8 p.m. at Romeo High School. We have some work to do to finalize the schedule for that evening and the topics for the breakout sessions. So I'll give a large group presentation, just a update on the district on some of the key topics and information, and then parents will have the opportunity to choose from, I'm going to guess probably 5 to 7 breakout sessions. They'll be able to attend 2 of those. Some of those will, when you see them, will be really specific to the level that your kids, are in, grade level. Others would apply to anyone. And it is our hope to offer these type of informational evenings potentially quarterly, but no less than 3 times a year. The unique piece of this one would be the notion of the state of the district, where other ones will just be informational sessions. We're also hopeful to potentially have some entities that will be there that might not actually run a breakout session, but might have informational materials and be at a table to have conversation with parents if they desire. So we need probably another week or so of planning, and then we'll be able to push more information out to parents to make sure that they hopefully have something that intrigues them to come, We don't anticipate like a full-scale recording of all the sessions to be served on demand, but we'll probably at least record that large group presentation from me to make it available. That's all I have for tonight.
I did not receive any forms for public comment. Is it on a topic that we're voting on tonight? Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Rob, can you get the mic on?
Okay, so I wrote something and then you kind of answered some questions. I guess my biggest question right now is, I just want to know if any of you have been in these classrooms and have seen the number of kids in these certain classrooms. My fourth grader has 32 students. You cannot tell me that every single student in there is learning from one teacher who is overwhelmed, okay? There's, the other two fourth grades have 31. The fifth grade has 30. Hevel has 2 fifth grades with 32 students. I'm not saying I'm against school of choice. I get it. It's a money thing. I understand. But at what point is what is your cap size? What is your target? Like, where are we ending with this number? Because 32, I think, is insane. And at this point, I feel like we're just packing them in. We're packing them in. And I get that however you said that, intra-district and whatever, I don't think that if you're in this district, you should be in whatever boundary you're in. You need to stay in and not go to these other schools that are overpopulated. Ham Par is busting at the seams right now. It's crazy to me. My young fiver is gonna come into a class with 47 kids. Okay? Your main page for Romeo Schools says a dynamic district that promotes inspiration, exploration, and achievement in our students, staff, and community. You cannot tell me this is the best interest. You don't have the best interest in the kids if all you're doing is cramming them in these classrooms. They're not going to achieve what they could if they're not learning properly with this. So I guess I'm telling you to not vote for school of choice, because I have 3 children in that corner right now that really demand a better education than having 32 kids in their classroom.
All right, thank you. Oh. Is there anybody else, because you should turn the sheets in? No, I'll take it, but just so we know, otherwise people just start filling them out. Okay.
This one, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Basically, after listening to one of the points you guys were talking about, do school of choice students have a different set of discipline guidelines? Like example, for suspension, expulsion, does a transfer student have a stricter set of rules that they need to follow if they continue to break the rules? Are they being given the same chances or strikes as a student that's in the district? I guess we've lived in many states because we're a military family, so certain schools we were in, we had less wiggle room to misbehave. Students had less wiggle room to misbehave before they were asked to leave, because we were always told it's considered a privilege to transfer to your preferred school district for your children. Do you know if can you answer that now? Huh?
We do.
Yeah,
We'll
you do.
be in touch. We
Okay.
don't two-way,
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
no problem. Anybody else? Seeing none, I will move on. May I have a motion for Employee Services Resolution 8, which is your personnel update in your board packet?
Motion.
Moved by Young,
Support.
support by Connor. Are there any questions or concerns? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I am seeing a few retirements of some longstanding folks, so I'm putting the plug in that we'll probably do some type of honoring all together. Okay, good. The next one is Facilities Resolution Number 9, which is the Croswell ECC Playground Equipment Purchase.
Motion.
Moved by Antoine, supported by Connor. This is to purchase the playground equipment from Game Time Sinclair Recreation, and this does come out of the 2021 facilities bond at $281,000. Questions or concerns?
Comment. Based off the presentation last week, I thought the equipment was great, but I felt like there could have been maybe a little more design and personality brought into the picture, especially with it being schools. So for me, I applaud our teams. I applaud Barton Mallow for the extensive work with change orders, labor costs, etc. But just in the future, if we can think of some more creative and thoughtfulness that defines us as Romeo with some of this construction. Not looking for extra costs, but creative cost. If there's any wiggle room to play with that when we are designing some of this. That's my only comment.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to Facilities Resolution 10, which is the Croswell Site Improvement Phase 1.
Motion.
Support.
Moved by Young, supported by Antoine. This is contracts for the Croswell Site Improvement Phase 1. And this is also out of the facilities bond, a little bit close to $615,000, rounding up. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next is Business Services Resolution 11, which is Schools of Choice for 2024-25. Can I have a motion? I will move. Is there a support? It's the only way we can have conversation. Doesn't mean we need to vote on it, but,
Support.
okay. So concerns, questions,
I have a
comments?
concern.
Yes.
I am in support of school of choice. I want that to be known. I do think that families deserve to come to an amazing district if they want to. I do not agree with allowing school of choice parents to come to a district and then, in doing so, dictate where they want to go. I think that if we have a school that has a lesser amount of enrollees, then those students should have to go to that school. I don't agree.
That is what happens. We have to be clear that that is what happens. We are not putting schools of choice kids and getting class sizes to the 32. That is a
No,
contractual
but what we
number.
what we are doing is allowing them to choose where they want to go.
No, they get an option and then we tell them, we don't have space there. The administrators do that now. We're not putting schools of choice. That is not what is causing high class sizes. People that live there are causing high class sizes, or they were there long before a boom happened. So once you become schools of choice, you get to stay at that elementary. And then houses get built, i.e. in the Bruce Township area. And so you could say that, but then are you going to ship out all those people?
Are you asking me that?
Well, by not having schools of choice, I don't know that we can keep people that make up, that are in our buildings now.
So the redistricting last year that we moved students out of,
It created space. What we
Created
did is
space
we
for-
moved, and remember, that was geographic. We
Yeah.
had people, when we built Hevel, we pulled from a larger geographic area.
and then we had the conversation about Hevel being the number one school where school of choice parents wanted to go, and for that reason, we were allowing school of choice kids to go to that school. I
don't
distinctly
it
remember that
way.
conversation.
I think you might be talking about the people that are contiguous to us, like Hevel is one of our areas that is closer to the east? If
No,
that's
the
what you're
discussion
talking about?
was
We
that
did
we
have that.
don't want to turn away people. We don't, because I think the question was, if Washington is so empty, why aren't we making those school of choice people go there?
That was my argument, yeah.
Which, if Romeo Schools is a great place to be, and
You
I
should
agree, then
Be privileged to go
there
anywhere.
shouldn't, yeah, you know, Washington is a great place to end up.
So
but
the
we were
question now
afraid-
becomes, do
We
you-
were afraid to say that because we thought we would lose them then. So that was part of the discussion. So I'll just ask, because I'm in favor of school of choice. I think it is a good thing, but I'll go back to my question. If we know, like, if Hampar is bursting at the seams for fourth grade now, that's only going to create large fifth grades next year unless we are ready to hire another teacher. So are we going to shut down Hampar as an option for incoming school of choice fifth graders because we already know that's going to be an issue? And I think you said, no, we're not going to do that, so.
They will not
They won't
be
consent.
placed there.
So can we say that to parents when we give them options?
They're
Will
told
that not
that
even be an
they
option?
have to submit an application. And when we read that application and that's their first choice, the enrollment office says there is no room there.
Okay. What if it's, okay.
And then
That's
they
what-
can
that's
have
what I
second
need to
and
be
third.
reassured of to support school of choice.
Right. But, so the point he was making is, we're doubling down because now we're saying if you don't get your first choice, are you done? Because that way then we can cut bait a lot sooner
yeah.
than the ones that are like, well, I'm not sure, and they linger until August
And
24th.
where it creates some difficulty is when they have multiple kids they're trying to bring.
Right.
And there's room for at some grade levels and not
The others,
others.
I get that.
I don't envy that decision, but it is what it is.
I guess we're just making the point that we would like assurances that our kids that live in the district take ultimate priority over school of choice kids. And we love all kids, but the kids that live here get priority. And as far as large class sizes, I think that is going to be an argument for another day about how to handle that, because 32 kids in a classroom in an elementary school is absurd.
We have a motion and a second,
Yeah,
Mrs.
I just
Bonnet.
wasn't sure if anybody else had any comments. All right. Do you guys want me to do roll call? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Business Services Resolution 12, which is the CTE machine tools equipment purchase.
Motion.
Moved by
Support.
Rice, supported by Antoine. I am trying to bring that up really fast, sorry.
Mrs. Bonnet, can I clarify why you're looking for that? I just
Yeah.
wanted to thank Mr. Keeler, who is our machine tools teacher.
Oh,
Is here tonight, just in case. He is the one that's going to make use of this wonderful equipment with our students in the machine tools pathway. So thank you for being here tonight, Dan.
so this is a CTE machine tool. It's updated equipment. The tool advisory team is who made the recommendation. We have some grant funds that came along with it, and we are expecting to install it in May with approval. And $129,000 is from CTE equipment grant, and $136,000 is from the 61A vocational education funds. Questions? Oh, thank you.
Who worked on the grant for this one?
Mrs. Dawson, Mrs. Lasky, and Mr. Keeler.
And then how much was the grant?
The grant was approved for $129,785.71.
I think I can say on behalf of everyone, thank you for your hard work for the grant. That's huge. So, thank you. Grants are not easy to write.
All right, any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Board discussion for the good of the district? Ms. Ikorst, do you
Oh,
have
I just
anything?
had a question about the climate surveys. When will we be able to see the data from that? I know there was 3 different groups surveyed.
I'm hopeful that we'll get the opportunity to look at those internally early in February, and then that will certainly be on the agenda for the March workshop with the board.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything? Seeing none, public comment. I have Mr. Lee's School of Choice.
So I've just been listening tonight regarding these discussions about school choice, and I'm shocked actually at what I'm hearing. Where our schools are bursting at the seams. I mean, there's a typical elementary school, a typical elementary classroom is 30 plus kids. That's crazy. There's no way that a single teacher can handle 30 kids effectively and teach them. And then we have where you guys just voted on a policy to school. This discussion sounded to me, and I may be wrong, but it sounded to me like it just started and ended here. That school choice is moving forward per what we just read, which was unlimited for elementary school and limited from 9th grade on. This is crazy. How do you see this as being a good plan? I mean, these elementary classrooms are bursting. Anybody that you talk to will tell you they had a great experience in their classroom that had 15 kids in it. No one is going to come to you and tell you how great their kid is doing in a classroom of 30 kids. It's just not going to happen. So all of you need to get back together and talk about the school choice thing again, because what I just heard is very, very disturbing. Thank you.
Thank you. If anybody else wants to, just turn your sheets in over at the table. Okay. Carrie?
Mine's going to be quick. So I just had an experience when we were at Chippewa Valley very briefly, and I don't know all the details about the rules. I kind of listened a little bit about the school choice with you guys. Last I did hear, I thought the high school was capped. So I guess I'm confused why I'm hearing we're still taking students. So I thought I heard that from the principal, but I misunderstood. But did you guys say that when you apply, do you have to apply every year? Because I know when we were building or going to build in Chippewa Valley, I have 3 kids close in age. And I remember I wanted my kids to go to a certain elementary school that was on this side of M59. I remember calling the district and they told me that every year I had to apply, so there might be times where my children might be separated from an elementary school and have to go on the other side. So I guess, and I said, she goes, I'm not promising, but every year I'd have to apply for school of choice. So I'm not understanding is we did not build a house because of that reason. We ended up out here in Romeo, which was great. But that was a huge decision for us that we did not want our kids to go to a certain elementary school and that every year there'd be a chance where my kids were split up. So it was a horrible decision, but we ended up not building a house over that. So I guess my question is that something that would be considered here in Romeo because we are growing. It's becoming huge here. And it's just going to get bigger and bigger, and more subs are everywhere. And that's something that maybe you guys could consider. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Support by Ikorst, made by Antoine, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries.